On October 23rd, the basketball world was stunned by the news that Chauncey Billups was allegedly implicated in a gambling scandal with mafia ties. When prompted for a reaction, Shaq offered this.
I know everybody that's at play, and I don't like to sit up here and be hypocritical about certain things.
Now that likely signals one thing: he was aware. In this video, I will reveal new footage of NBA players pleading with Chauncey Billups to protect their identities. The shockwave that hit the league, the basketball world awoke to sheer chaos on October 23rd, 2025, a date that will be forever burned into NBA history as one of its bleakest moments. As fans nationwide geared up to celebrate the start of the new season, federal authorities were executing what can only be called a massive sting operation, sending tremors through every part of professional basketball. This was not just another tale of athletes exercising poor judgment. This was something far more menacing, meticulously planned, and more destructive than anyone could have foreseen. The headlines erupted across every sports channel, social media feed, and news source in the country. Portland Trail Blazers coach Chauncey Billups and Miami Heat guard Terry Rozier were in FBI custody, but this was no ordinary arrest. It marked the climax of a multi-year federal probe that would uncover an underground network so complex, technologically advanced, and deeply intertwined with organized crime that it would make Hollywood screenplays look ordinary.
Good morning. Today we are here in New York to announce a historic arrest across a wide-sweeping criminal enterprise that envelops both the NBA and La Casa Nostra. The men and women up here standing with me represent a small portion of the leadership team that brought profound justice in an era that needed it more than any.
When FBI Director Kash Patel himself addressed the media alongside numerous federal agencies, the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Eastern District of New York, the NYPD, Homeland Security Investigations, and the Waterfront Commission, everyone understood this was a landmark event. The director's presence at a press conference is a rarity, reserved for only the most critical cases. As he spoke, the full terrifying scope of the discovery became clear. The probe had uncovered not one, but two huge criminal schemes operating in tandem, sometimes overlapping and sometimes independently, but always with the identical aim to defraud victims, fix outcomes, and amass tens of millions of dollars illegally. The initial scheme, named Operation Nothing But Bet, centered on insider sports betting in the NBA, where players and coaches allegedly passed confidential details on player availability, injuries, and strategies to betting syndicates, who then placed huge wagers on prop bets, with guaranteed results. The second, Operation Royal Flush, was even more intricate and chilling. This was a national web of rigged poker games, supported by four major mafia families, the Bonanno, Gambino, Genovese, and Lucchese crime families, collaborating in what prosecutors called one of the most sophisticated gambling frauds ever exposed in the U.S.
The FBI led a coordinated takedown across 11 states to arrest over 30 individuals today responsible for this case, which is very much ongoing. Not only did we crack into the fraud that these perpetrators committed on the grand stage of the NBA, but we also entered and executed a system of justice against La Casa Nostra, to include the Bonanno, Gambino, Genovese, and Lucchese crime families.
The sheer numbers were staggering. Over 30 people arrested in 11 states, facing charges from wire fraud and money laundering to extortion and armed robbery. And at the heart of it all were names familiar to every basketball fan, names associated with greatness, championships, and the success that aspiring players dream of. Chauncey Billups, Miss Big Shot himself, a five-time NBA All-Star, the 2004 Finals MVP who guided the Detroit Pistons to a title, and a member of the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame, inducted just a year earlier in 2020. As of that pivotal October morning, he was the head coach of the Portland Trail Blazers, a role he'd held with seeming distinction since 2021. How could a man with such a celebrated career, who had achieved all that basketball could offer, end up in handcuffs facing federal charges that could lead to decades in prison? Terry Rozier, at only 31, was at the peak of his career. The Miami Heat guard was on a massive $96.3 million four-year contract and was known as a potent scoring threat. He had everything to lose, yet federal prosecutors claim he risked it all for what was pocket money compared to his salary. The accusations were specific and damning. Rozier allegedly gave inside information on his own play, texting associates that he'd leave games early with sham injuries so bettors could win on under prop bet. The most prominent example, which later went viral, was a March 23, 2023 game between the Charlotte Hornets and New Orleans Pelicans. That evening, Rozier allegedly texted his childhood friend De Niro Laster his plan to exit the game early with a supposed shoulder injury. As promised, Rozier played just 9 minutes and 34 seconds. The betting ring, using this insider tip, wagered over $200,000 on under bets for his stats. When Rozier left, those bets paid out handsomely. Court documents state the winnings were later delivered to Rozier's home where the cash was counted, but here the story becomes even darker and the social media rumors must be confronted directly. Following the arrest, social media ignited with claims of new footage showing NBA players begging Billups not to implicate them. These claims spread uncontrollably, with fans speculating wildly about which other players and teams might be involved. Let's be unequivocally clear, after extensive research of news reports, federal indictments, and social media, there is zero credible evidence that any such footage exists. No video or audio has been released. No players have been seen begging. This seems to be a case of internet rumor spiraling out of control, fueled by the shocking nature of the news. The reality, meticulously documented by federal investigators, is far more troubling than any rumor. The probe showed this was not just a few individuals making bad choices. It was a systematically organized criminal enterprise that recruited influential NBA figures to act as face cards, celebrities used to entice wealthy victims into high-stakes rigged poker games.
And the fraud is mind-boggling. It's not hundreds of dollars. It's not thousands of dollars. It's not tens of thousands of dollars. It's not even millions of dollars. We're talking about tens of millions of dollars in fraud and theft and robbery across a multi-year investigation.
According to indictments, unsealed on October 23rd, the poker operation alone cheated victims out of at least $715 million, though the real number is likely much larger. One person alone reportedly lost $1.8 million. These were not smoky backroom games, but high-stakes operations in exclusive U.S. locations: the Hamptons, Las Vegas luxury suites, upscale Miami venues, and Manhattan penthouses. The victims thought they were at legitimate tables with NBA stars, believing skill and luck would decide the outcome. They couldn't have known that everyone at the table, except them, was part of the scam. The dealer, the other players, and even the face cards were allegedly in on it. Prosecutors allege Billups took part in at least one 2019 game that defrauded victims of, but his alleged involvement went further. Court documents imply he was also part of the NBA betting scheme as co-conspirator 8, an Oregon resident and former player 1997-2014, who became a coach in 2021, a perfect match for Billups. If true, he may have tipped off bettors about the Trailblazers resting star players before a game against the Chicago Bulls on March 24, 2023, leading to a 28-point blowout loss and big wins for the syndicate. Following the money in the mob, as prosecutors unraveled this criminal enterprise, they found a sophisticated network that combined advanced technology, old-school mob enforcement, and celebrity allure to create a perfect storm of fraud. The poker scheme, active since at least 2019, required an intricate web of participants, each playing a role to ensure that wealthy victims, called fish, were systematically fleeced. These were not street hustlers, they were organized criminals with access to advanced technology, backed by America's most powerful crime families.
Games in the New York area were backed by the Bonanno, Gambino, and Genovese crime families of La Cosa Nostra.
The collaboration of four La Cosa Nostra families, Bonanno, Gambino, Genovese, and Lucchese, is exceptionally rare and highlights the enormous profits involved. These families typically operate in separate territories. For all four to cooperate suggests the money was so substantial that pooling resources was preferable to internal conflict. Federal authorities state at least 13 defendants have direct ties to these families, including capos and made members. These were not just associates, they were actual mafia members running rigged games and using NBA figures as bait. Chauncey Billups' alleged role as a face card was crucial. Imagine a wealthy entrepreneur invited to a private high-stakes game with a Hall of Famer. Your guard drop. You think, this has to be legit. Why would a famous coach risk his reputation? That was precisely the plan. Billups wasn't the only one. Damon DJ Jones, a former player and assistant coach, was also arrested in both schemes. Jones allegedly acted as a link, gathering inside information while also lending credibility to the poker games. The sophistication of the cheating technology was mind-blowing. Federal agents seized modified Deckmate 2 shuffling machines fitted with hidden cameras and transmitters. These devices read the entire deck's order via RFID chips or barcodes, relaying the information in real time to an off-site quarterback, who then fed it back to players at the table via encrypted devices. The tech went further. X-ray tables allowed conspirators with special glasses to see cards face down. Marked decks were used with special contact lenses. Poker chip trays held hidden cameras. Every angle was covered. A fish had virtually no chance of winning, and if a victim couldn't pay their debt, this is where the mafia connection turned dangerous. The crime families provided enforcement through threats, intimidation, and in at least one documented case, armed robbery. Prosecutors revealed one victim was tracked down and threatened, while another was robbed at gunpoint for a rigged shuffling machine. This was raw organized crime, where debts were settled with fear and violence. Now to the sports betting operation, where the implications for the NBA are even more alarming. The scheme, running from December 2022 to March 2024, involved manipulating at least 7 NBA games using non-public information. The model was simple: find an insider, a player, coach, or trainer, and convince them to share information with bettors for guaranteed wins. Terry Rozier's case is the clearest example. On March 23, 2023, he allegedly texted his friend Danilo Laster that he would fake a shoulder injury to exit a game early. This was a pre-planned move for betting manipulation. With this tip, Laster's syndicate wagered over $200,000 on under-prop bets for Rozier's stat. When he left after just 9 minutes, the bets paid off. Video of his exit has since gone viral, with many scrutinizing his body language. What's damning is the NBA investigated Rozier for this in 2023 after sportsbooks flagged odd betting patterns but found insufficient evidence. Federal investigators, with wiretaps and subpoena power, built a stronger case, but Rozier's alleged plot wasn't unique. The indictments detail other manipulated games. Damon Jones allegedly sold information on LeBron James's foot injury. An unnamed Orlando Magic player allegedly leaked information about the Cavaliers. And then there's the allegation against co-conspirator 8, believed to be Billups, who allegedly told bettors the Trail Blazers would rest their stars before a game they lost by 28 points. The fallout and the future. The arrest sent the NBA into crisis mode. The league stated it takes the allegations with the utmost seriousness, but behind the PR statements was panic. Billups and Rozier were put on indefinite leave. These were not mere temporary suspensions, but the start of potential permanent exile from the league. The NBA's gambling rules are incredibly strict. Article 35 of its constitution allows for severe discipline, including lifetime ban. The precedent is Jontay Porter, banned for life in April 2024 for a similar scheme. If convicted, Rozier could face a lifetime ban, voiding his contract and saving the Heat $26.6 million. For a player in his prime, it would be a catastrophic fall. Billups, as a coach, faces a slightly different but no less severe outcome. He could be fired, suspended, and never work in basketball again. The legal jeopardy for both is immense. Federal wire fraud and money laundering charges carry sentences of up to 20 years per count. While maximum sentences are rare, significant prison time is a real possibility.
The reason I'm mad at Kenny is, man, this ain't got nothing to do with damn gambling addiction. This ain't got nothing to do with addiction. These dudes are stupid. Why are they stupid? Under no circumstances can you fix basketball games. Under no circumstances.
The The reaction from NBA figures was a mix of shock and anger. On TNT's Inside the NBA, Shaq admitted the temptation exists, but emphasized that every player knows the rules. We all know the letter of the law, and it's just unfortunate. Charles Barkley was blunter, calling the defendants stupid for risking so much for comparatively little money. His point resonated: why would a player making $26 million a year risk it all for a friend's $50,000 bet? Kenny Smith suggested gambling addiction could be a factor, noting that it leads to illogical decisions regardless of wealth. This debate highlights a key question: was this about greed, stupidity, or addiction? The truth is likely a combination. The broader implications for sports are undeniable. The scandal emerges as sports gambling has exploded since a 2018 Supreme Court ruling. The NBA embraced this shift, partnering with betting companies like DraftKings. These deals are lucrative but have blurred the line between fandom and gambling. Broadcasts now feature betting odds and prop suggestions. Critics argue the league invited this crisis by integrating gambling so deeply into the fan experience without proper safeguards. Commissioner Adam Silver defended the NBA's monitoring and education programs, but they were clearly not enough to stop this conspiracy. Looking ahead, the NBA faces tough choices: enhanced injury reporting, stricter limits on prop betting, and even federal legislation are all on the table. The investigation is not over. Prosecutors have hinted more indictments could be on the way as they probe connections to college basketball and other sports. The FBI has asked for anyone with information to come forward, suggesting more of this story has yet to be told. That brings us to this story's conclusion. For more videos like this, click the cards on your screen.